Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and today we're out here by my tubs because we are quickly running out of time to move in fish. Now the forecast has been in the 80s almost every day and the high 50s to low 60s overnight, but tonight it's going to get down into about 48 degrees Fahrenheit, which is way too cold for most of the species. Now the rest of the week looks pretty good. It's going to be cold tonight and tomorrow night. It's going to be warm for the middle of the week, and then it's going to get cold, even colder for next week. So the time has come to bring in the fish. Now today I'm going to focus on getting in the least cold tolerant fish from these outdoor tubs. Now if you're new here, I've been doing this for over 10 years, and every year I move out a bunch of my subtropical or tropical fish into these tubs in my yard. I grow a ton of plants and the fish just reproduce. It's super rewarding, super fun, extremely easy, and I encourage all of you to try it. Now, one of the most commonly asked questions I get is, how do I know when to move fish out and how do I know when to move fish in? And the simple answer is, I watch the weather. Now, I'll show you my forecast here, and you can see that in theory, the fish will probably make it through this cold snap. If you wanted to get more time with them outside, you could certainly drop in heaters, but for me, summer tubbing is all about simplicity. In fact, half the time I don't even use any filtration in my tubs, and in these tubs this year, I use simple sponge filtration. So today we're going to move a bunch of the plants, catch as many fish as we can, move them into the basement, and take a look and see how things did. Now the plants can still continue to grow for quite some time, so it's most likely I'll put them back into the tubs. One thing to consider though, if you do that, is that mosquitoes will develop. So you want to use something like the BTIs, which are an organic way to prevent mosquitoes from forming in your tub should you continue to keep them full of water. So let's get started, catch some fish, move them into the greenhouse, and take a look at how things went. Now I have to be honest in that I don't even remember exactly what fish I put in what tub, so it's going to be an adventure together. This particular tub has a ton of water hyacinth. It has some of these carnivorous pitcher plants. It has the sensitive plant. It has a bunch of this azolla. It has some creeping jenny and a bunch of other little plants. And I'm going to move those out of the way so that I can actually get to the fish. I have a simple net, I have a specimen container, and I do have a siphon because I'll likely have to lower the water level a bit. There's also a little frog in here that I'll show you guys as well. He's super cute. Now, one of the reasons that summer tubbing is so successful is you can see the root development that these plants get, and that gives plenty of spots for the fry to hide. And part of the reason that carnivorous plants work so well in my tubs is that these tubs are mainly full of rainwater. But even when I top them off, the water is very, very dilute. The TDS out of my tap is less than 100, which means they can work quite well. I use some of these pavers to elevate some of the plants. There's also some water lilies in here. They didn't do super awesome, but I didn't keep up with my fertilizing regime very well this year. The only reason I'm moving the plants is it just makes it way easier to catch the fish. Again, most of these will be going back in. Water hyacinth, if you guys remember, I put one in here. This is an invasive species in a lot of areas. This I will mulch so that I don't risk releasing it into any waterways or put in tightly closed plastic bags. But you can see how quickly it spreads. Now I'm just looking as I pull these out to make sure there's not any fish in them. The easiest way to do that is to look for sparkly eyes, in all honesty. So the hyacinth I will not place back in here, but the rest of the plants will, and I'll keep it pretty shallow. There's my sponge filter. You can see that the hyacinth roots grew into the filter as well. Now, one of the things that I do leading up to emptying my tubs is I do top them off with tap water. Even though my tap water and the rainwater are relatively close, this just makes it easier when I move them down into the basement to not have any sort of shock to the conditions. Historically, I have not had an issue, but rather safe than sorry. Sensitive plant is very impressive. All right, so now I'm just going to collect some water. And we'll see what we get. These are Daniochopre. As I'm netting, I'll just pull out any of the debris. It's mainly plant roots. Again, I don't do any water changes on these. I just top them off all summer long. And in fact, I didn't even feed them once this year, as the fish eat all the bugs and algae and things that develop within the tubs. You want to make sure you look through your net carefully though, because smaller fry can be easy to miss. Oh, I got a frog. Isn't that cute? Go free, little friend. I'm going to go ahead and catch what I can catch, and then I'll show you guys the results. Now I did a preliminary sweep and gathered about 40 fish. You can see the water's pretty murky. We'll let it settle up. I will also let this tub sit and settle for a bit, and then look again for any fry, and then replace the plants. We're going to move on down to my CPD tub. Now today for sure we're going to empty this tub, and that back tub. That had pygmy sunfish, this had CPDs, and I honestly don't remember what I put in this back one. So we'll figure it out together. I may leave the 2 minnow tubs, which are these two. That back one is the longfin minnows, and these are my line-bred meteor minnows for tomorrow. Also, the greenhouse does not need to be addressed for probably another month. I just need to shut the door. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing in these tubs as I did with that last one, and then we'll take a look and see what we got. With the deeper tubs, sometimes I will siphon into a net because you can't visualize into the tub to see if there's any fish. And this way, if they go for that roller coaster ride, I capture them in the net and they're kept humid. I keep a specimen container right next door to be able to move them in. And I do keep a close eye, but it is one strategy. I'll drop it down to about this bottom level of the tub, and then I'll be able to visualize if there's fish in there or not. So far there's very few, and in the pygmy sunfish tub there was very few as well. Some beautiful adults, but I haven't found any fry. I got quite a few CPD, and then up next will be the 2 minnow tubs. I may just go ahead and do them today too, especially because the yields of these other 2 fish were so low. I have enough tank space set up. Now historically with the white clouds, both species or any species I move out, I have to do multiple sweeps just because they're so prolific. But we will see what happens. You never know what you're going to get in one of these seasons. This is the water hyacinth from the tubs alone. There's probably this much again in the greenhouse, and if you remember correctly, I only bought a couple of plants this year. So you can see easily why it's so invasive, but also so useful for summer tubbing. Now my yields this year were sort of spotty. I only took a couple of scoops from the 300 gallon. I expect to get quite a few more fish out of there, but let's take a look at the fish real quick before we move them inside. You can see the water's still pretty murky because they're still in the bin water. Those are the chopre. We have CPD. I got about maybe 50 or 60 of each of those. I caught a trio of the pygmy sunfish, which are hiding in the mung. You may be able to see them moving around. The tinwini did nothing. The longfin white clouds, I'm moving in more than I put out, but it's a disappointing yield. And then my meteor minnows. I did 2 scoops and caught about 30 or 40 fish so far, and again, that's a 300 gallon, so I expect to get quite a few more. So I'm going to move all these guys down into the basement, get them adjusted to the water, and then we'll take a look at their colors. Also, I left the shallow Laguna tubs with water about 1/3 of the way full just to keep the plants going. And then there's still some plants that have to be moved into tubs. And again, I overwinter and reuse all of these plants every year except for the water hyacinth, so none of this will go to waste. Now I still have to finish catching my meteor minnows, but you can see just with those 2 scoops, I got quite a few, and they do have some decent color. I was pretty pleased. The longfins didn't do nearly as well. I only got maybe 15, which was pretty disappointing, but I think I'll continue to work with line breeding them indoors, or at least save them for next year to try again. Each year is different, and you never know exactly what's going to happen. Now, the CPDs did amazing. I was pretty pleased with their result, and you can see how beautiful the coloration on the males is. Historically, these guys are hit or miss outdoors. I'm not sure if it's a size of the food, but this year they did particularly well, so I'm very, very happy about that. I also have tons and tons of the Danio chopre, which are one of my favorite smaller Danios. I just think they're really beautiful. I'm not quite sure why the Tinwini didn't breed, really. Usually they're pretty prolific, but you never know what you're going to get. And my regular white clouds went gangbusters. You can see there's quite a few of them in this aquarium, but they're a wonderful fish, so I'm certainly happy to have them. And then finally are my Ginga rubra guppies. Now, I didn't show collecting these, and I still have more in the greenhouse, but I was super pleased with how they did. As always, I'd love to see how your guys' yields were, so tag me on Instagram and let me see what's going on in your tubs. As always, I hope everyone is staying safe and staying home, and I will see you in the next video.